Hello, everyone, and welcome back to Blockchain Versus. I'm joined here with my co-host, Jeremy Bourne, and we are joined today by Ms. Kelly LeValley Hunt. She is an investor and advisor in the space for several years, graduated University of Warwick Business School, where she recently returned to lecture. And in 2018, she was named both Forbes 2018 Blockchain Pioneer and Microsoft's 2018 Women in Blockchain Award for Hypergrowth and Innovation. Kelly, welcome to Blockchain Versus.
Thank you. Thank you for having me.
Thank you for being here. Well, I'd love to get right into it. Usually here on the show, we talk a little bit about your background in blockchain and your passion and what you're really excited about the future that blockchain brings that just didn't exist 10 years ago. Can you tell us a little bit about your background?
Yeah, my background is in data centers, really, and in software. And I became interested in Bitcoin in late 2014, and blockchain was in my mind, a byproduct, which realized now it's the opposite. I think cryptocurrency is a byproduct of blockchain. But as I was learning more about the space, I became very interested in blockchain technology. And I decided to leave the data center space and jump into running the sales for the first blockchain company to incubate out of Consensus. That company was BlockApps, which is a private blockchain protocol. And they went to market in 2017 after their incubation out of Consensus, and I took them to market. We signed opportunities and partnerships with Microsoft, AWS, Google, Red Hat, the UN, Monsanto, et cetera.
Beautiful. And if I recall correctly, BlockApps just recently published something around the blockchain adoption trends in 2020. Is that correct?
I believe so. We closed their Series A last in November, which is a big step for them. And also, the team wrote the spec for the Enterprise Ethereum Alliance. They're one of the founders of the Enterprise Ethereum Alliance. And so they publish strategic blockchain methods and methodologies and process often. Yeah.
That's amazing. How did that come to pass where they asked you to become an advisor?
Well, not only I was an advisor, but I was an investor. And I realized that they needed salespeople. In 2017, not very many people knew how to sell software and blockchain technology for a startup. And so I was one of those people that had that unique combination of understanding cryptocurrency, understanding the new technology market, understanding software sales and blockchain. And I was in that position to be able to move over from England and move to Brooklyn and spend every day with the startup and tennis shoes, t-shirt, and jeans, working difficult hours and taking them to market and trying to figure out a niche market for them to go into and target market for them to go into, and understanding that process. And along the way, blockchain kind of grew up in 2017, and people started to pay attention to it a little bit more. Now it's a $16 billion opportunity. Software as a service and blockchain as a service.
Yeah, no, I would agree. So let's back up a little bit, right? So, obviously you have a very technical background. You've done a lot with data centers and whatnot. I mean, take us back, earlier in understanding what got you into the technology and what made it so interesting where you decided and had that tipping point where you said, you know what, this might very well be the future.
Well, my uncle, Jim LeValley, worked for Cisco Systems for many years, and he would send me information about Cisco Systems when I was in my teens. And I really became very interested in anything new, any cutting edge technology. I was very interested in mobile phones. I opened up 3 mobile phone stores in Texas, and I just thought that's the future. My father told me they'll never buy from a mobile phone store or cell phone store. They'll order off these billboards. You can call a 1-800 number, Kelly, and they'll send you the phone to your house. And that was in the late 90s. And I soon realized that he might be wrong, even though he's a nuclear physicist. He's not right about that. So I quickly realized that I was very interested in, I was very good at learning how technology works, how networks work. And I decided to go to work with a company called BMC Software. And BMC spent a lot of time teaching us about how the software, the network works, how software works in the network, how understanding data flow and monitoring the data throughout your network and throughout your enterprise. So that was easy for me to understand, and also easy for me to understand why people would actually buy software and what the challenges were with implementing software. That was in the early 2000s.
I find that so fascinating. So, Kelly, you don't know much about me, but I kind of grew up in technology, and my family had, a data storage company for a Fortune 500, and a license plate that said DASD, and I had to go figure out what that meant at a very early age as well. So I've always been kind of obsessed with big data projects and data center moves, and how Fortune 500 looks at data, leverages data, and actually that's how Jeremy and I met many, many years ago in our Fortune 500 careers. And then 2 years ago, said, let's use our powers for good, and came over to the blockchain and crypto space. But I'm very interested to hear from your perspective on the enterprise and Fortune 500 implications of blockchain, because it changes everything, right? From supply chain and AI interoperability between blockchains. There's so much we can do with data, and I would definitely consider myself a data nerd.
Well, I think you're absolutely right. There's a lot of interesting things happening where I think that, if you are a coder, if you're a hacker, if you're a software salesperson, most likely you've never stepped inside of a data center. And if you're often, data scientists, they try to mine for information, they dig for the gold dust within data to be able to apply it across FMCGs, retail, banking, et cetera, science. And when I look at it, I see how blockchain is going to make a huge difference on the way that we create and we deploy in our process behind making sure that the data is always in flow. And let's just take the banking and financial environment, for example, data center environment. A physical data center is built, 20 megawatt data center for a bank. Let's just say that they just have one data center, not 20. And that 120 megawatt data center has to have, based on the regulations here in the United States, has to have backup. They have to have a hot backup. And then they have to have, for a disaster recovery, then they have to have a cold backup. And then they might even have a cloud, a hot cloud or a cold cloud as backup. And that's 20 times 4, right? 20 megawatt times 4. So when you have a blockchain and you have a network, when a server goes down, a physical server goes down, you have to back it up, or a database goes down, you have to back it up. When a node goes down, the network continues to operate. And when you bring a node back up, it auto syncs with the light node. Makes sure that that node that comes back up is in sync with all the other nodes. And within a blockchain solution, you have 4 types of nodes. You have a full, a super, a light, and a mining node. And so the light node is just a representation, has all the representation of the data that's passed before throughout the network prior. And I think that when you take that into consideration, the time that you wait to, when a database goes down or it gets hacked and the viruses go in and you have to back up from before the hack or before the virus took place, when you take all of that into consideration and you think about that process and how much it costs just the financial sector, just the banks, just climate. Do you know how much water it takes to run through a data center, to cool a data center, or to heat up a data center. The thermal equipment, for backup in a data center, for the UPSs, that all that machinery, and the space. Now, I'm not saying that data centers will go away, but I think our replication or duplication or multiplication of these data centers it's going to decrease. I think the regulations around data centers and the tiering of data centers are going to change. And I think it's going to have a positive effect on the way our climate is being affected by these massive hyperscale data centers. So I think that, to me, is the biggest positive from blockchain technology. Now, not to mention the peer-to-peer transactions and how quick these transactions can actually settle, because when Visa, let's take Visa. Visa has, they can burst at 200,000 transactions per second. They are 20,000 transactions per second. And if you take a Ethereum protocol, you're looking at 60 transactions per second. But at the end of that transaction, I mean, that's nothing compared to what Visa, but the Visa is not settling when they transact. They have to go through 7 or 8 other people or organizations to be able to pay that vendor. So if I go to a store, I use my Visa credit card and I pay a vendor, a grocery store, for the milk that I buy, they don't get paid immediately for that transaction. It doesn't settle until everything is recognized in my path all the way back to that grocery store owner or their bank or their account. So it doesn't, a lot of people say, oh, Ethereum, they only have 60 transactions per second, or let's just, in a positive light, say 100 transactions per second, or there's a new protocol called Avalanche. I think they've been known to hit 2,000 transactions per second with a consensus algorithm, not just a timestamp. Now, if you take that into consideration, that's significantly lower than Visa, but Visa doesn't settle for every transaction. So I think that's the big difference with blockchain technology. Peer-to-peer transactions, they're settled immediately. But also, the effects of how the data centers are going to, how blockchain is going to change the data center industry as well.
Yeah, it's interesting you went down that route of the data centers and data management, right? That was actually one of the questions I was going to ask you. So, there's a lot of people that we've spoken to, especially early on in our existence of our company that we run, CoinGenius, which is, sourcing people that have data management experience, obviously sorting through vast seas of data and trying to extract the, like you said, gold dust out of that is something that we do and we're trying to do for traders. So we're looking for the best of the best of folks that actually have the database management experience and understanding how to, clean and normalize the data and put it in a way to where we can actually access it in real time. Those people I ran into at that point, and this was I think it was late 2016. Most people obviously knew about blockchain technology as far as like the people that were, very high up at, the Microsofts of the world and some of these large Intel organizations. And overwhelmingly, I would say over 75, 80% of them all just didn't believe that it was powerful enough to make a change. They said, hey, distributed databases already exist. Cryptography has been around for a long time. Private key management is already there. I mean, there were so many things that it was just very hard for the average person or somebody like me that's not as technical as them to be able to convince them that this is truly the new way that we are going to transact and manage data moving forward. And all the things that I heard you say, it sounds like it really comes down to uptime, reliability, and security is seemingly what blockchain is really providing the data space, whether it's data centers or data stores, data management. Is that fair to say? Is that really the killer application of blockchain as it relates to data?
Absolutely, plus visibility and accessibility. Because what happens when a database goes down? And if you work for any Fortune 500 company, You're sitting at your desk in your little cubicle and you are typing on your computer and the database goes down. You can't access certain applications. Sometimes your email goes down. You can't access what you need to access. What do? You get up and you go to the water cooler and you have about 10 minutes, 15 minutes, sometimes 30 minutes, in a bad case, an hour of downtime where nothing gets done. And then you go back to your desk and you continue on your computer. So how much does that cost you per person every time that happens per minute? And you know, accessibility with blockchain is going to change the way we do business going forward. It's not going to be immediately. Somebody asked me the other day, why can't blockchain work like PayPal? And I asked the audience that this man asked me in front of, and I said, why? Let's answer his question. Anybody have any answer for that? And everybody said, oh, it's this and that and PayPal, blah, blah, blah. But nobody said time. PayPal's been around for 20 years, and time is what we need for this to really take place. I mean, look at the internet. Look at how laptops have evolved. Look at how, I can't say look how data centers have evolved, because data centers are evolving at a much slower pace than the user, direct user products and services. Laptops and mobile phones have changed a lot faster than the data center space. However, the data center space is evolving. They have changed from brick and mortar data centers to containerized solutions, from high density racks, from low density racks to high density racks. And it is evolving, but blockchain technology is going to evolve, but it's right now it's in that stage of, it's a new technology. It's in that testing stage right now. 10 years in, it's still in that testing stage. And to be fair, it's really been around for 5 years. The first 5 years was really just trying to understand what the space was about, the differences. I mean, people still say that, when they ask about the blockchain space, they say, okay, tell me about the cryptocurrency space. And I'm like, you mean blockchain? And then they correct themselves. And getting the terminology right, understanding what a Merkle tree is, or understanding the different protocols out there. We're still evolving. I mean, the other day, Dapper Labs announced that they're gonna build their own protocol. The reason why they want to build their own protocol is because they think they could build a protocol that is faster than the Ethereum protocol. So and you know what? Let them do it, because if everybody tries to build, then we will evolve faster. So
I would agree. Go ahead.
It's still in its infancy. But it will change the way we do business and the way we interact with people, the way we engage with one another, the way we transact, what we see as value, what we see as an asset. That is going to evolve very, very quickly over the next 5-10 years.
I agree.
Oh, I would totally agree. Yeah. I just have to say something, Christina, I'll let you go real quick, which is you said something really interesting. And this is a really good way, because, half the battle is education, right? So the people that don't understand the technology understand that there's a couple layers to this, in blockchain technology and cryptography. And then there's cryptocurrency as a means to transfer value across those blockchains. A lot of people just don't understand that. But if you, draw that corollary, which we hear a lot, right? It's just like the internet, right? It's like the internet in 1995. We're at the very beginning. But in terms of what you said, if you look at the internet in 95, to your point that we just need time, I 100% agree, because in 1995, it was something like Instagram possible? No, right? Was something like Facebook possible? Were these social media empires able to be built on that infrastructure? No, because it needed time. But what happened and what time allowed was new tools and technologies to be developed alongside of the underlying protocol to help make the use and consumption easier. And I think that will happen over time, to your point. And we're seeing that with more applications and more things and more protocols and newer ideas that are more cutting edge, that eventually we will find, if we haven't already, and some would argue we have, found the killer app that gets people to utilize the technology without understanding or realizing they're even using blockchain. And that's when we're going to see mass adoption happen.
Yes, I mean, I guest lectured at Warwick Business School on Monday in England, and there it was a master's course, and some of the people in there were, there was probably about 40 or 50 people in the class, and they're between the ages of 25 and 35, and I asked them what made the internet what made the internet money? What made the internet so filthy rich? Why build anything on the internet? Why is it so interesting? And what was the killer app that made the internet interesting to the business world? And there was a lot of hands that went up, and there was a lot of interesting answers and thoughtful answers as well. But what they didn't realize, because of their age, they didn't realize that without a mobile phone, without a smartphone, the internet wouldn't be what it is. And the blockchain space right now, we are looking at different tools. You're absolutely right. The tools are, the tools that we have right now aren't built for blockchain. We have tools that are built for the internet and catering to the internet. But in the blockchain space, I truly believe, and I truly believe that AR and VR is what's going to really change the face of blockchain. Non-fungible tokens, unique fungible tokens, is really going to change the way we interact with blockchain technology in retail and the gaming industry. And I think the tokenization, a lot of investors are staying away from tokens, but that is going to be what causes mass adoption, because you can take NFTs or unique fungible tokens and implement them into games and take them out of the games and go and spend them the way you would like to, buying bread or shoes, and interact with, Nike just filed for a patent for NFTs for their sneakers. So I think that, there's a couple of things that are really going to change the face of how people see blockchain. And I think it's really, there's going to be more tools and more assets within the blockchain space that is going to be developed. And it will be less about which protocol you should choose. It'll be more about what you utilize and what you're doing and what you need to bring into the space in order to really get the most bang for your buck, to make it simple.
Kelly, I love that you brought that up, especially the NFTs. I like to take that all the way to the final end of the thought, which would be the tokenization of all things. And that's the tokenization of all things from, the cotton in your jeans and the carbon it took to get there and the human capital it took to get there. You spoke earlier about, downtime and the impact, the financial impact to the organization. The transparency of blockchain and the interoperability between blockchains. To your point, it won't matter the protocol anymore, because the user experience, whether on the Fortune 500 side or, business insights, they will start to be able to see where they can start to save money. And that will be a no-brainer for them to just turn on the interoperability. In some ways, the financial sector has already seen that, where they're starting to adopt protocols. You see with the XRP token and the cross-border payments, the bigger banks are being forced to adopt it because, 27 of their clients are already doing it. So I think that the use case and the user experience will drive the adoption. To Jeremy's point, you got to bring it up a layer. And I think that that's exactly what's happening in the industry. I think that quantification of labor, resources, human capital, time, travel, all of those things become really important in how we are globally going to change how we all interact with each other on this tiny little rock. There wasn't a point there, much more than I completely agree with everything that you're saying.
Well, I just want to take it I mean, if we, there's an organization called Troust, it's Traust, and they are looking at different protocols to, I mean, just to go back to, what you pointed out, like the tokenization of everything. And to be fair, in 20 years, I think that that's what we'll be looking at because of the logistics and supply chain sector. There's going to be a demand for it. If you take, World Wildlife Fund, for example, track and trace. They decided because an observer was thrown overboard because of something that he saw, Keith Davis. He saw something that was illegal. Therefore, the boat that he was on, they wanted to make sure that they made their money off of their catch, and they decided to throw the observer overboard. Keith Davis went missing. Bubba Cook, who is the head of the fisheries for the World Wildlife Fund, decided that he's going to do something about it, and they built a track and trace for the fisheries. The boats that go out, they have GPS tracking devices that register back to the blockchain, all the files and documentation for the boats, and those the people that are on the boats, and those boats are registered with a distribution system that is registered with the World Wildlife Fund. And in the future, we're going to see World Wildlife Fund approved fish in our grocery stores with QR codes or RFID tags, et cetera. So that's already built. Getting it into the grocery stores is in the process of being built. But if you take a look at tokenizing everything, if you take Troust, for example, Truum is the team that built the World Wildlife Fisheries track and trace. It's TREUM. Another company is a Canadian-based company called Troust. They want to tokenize everything in the grid for housing, for example. So in the United States, there's grids. Everything is set up on a grid, like LA, for example. And within that district, let's take a whole district and we divide it into 4. And then in that quarter, you'll divide the apartment buildings or land ownership into different quadrants. And let's just take an apartment building, then each of those apartments will be given a token or an NFT. And everything in that apartment, if it's owned by the government, like for social housing, for example, everything in that would be given an NFT with smart contracts built inside of it. So the purchase of your refrigerator, for example, supply chain and all the documentation for your refrigerator, and the expiration date and all the certification, who owns it, does the state own it, or does the person that's living in the apartment own it? All this will be on blockchain, and it'll be tokenized, and you'll have the smart contracts within the token built in. And so we'll be able to click on a state within the United States, drill down into a district, drill down into a quadrant, see all of the contracts that are listed there, permission-based access, obviously, for blockchain users, and then click on an apartment building or a piece of land and see who owns it. Click on that apartment building, see who owns apartment number 1A, see everything that is registered in that apartment, and all of the contracts and their certificates and their warranties, et cetera, how much was paid for it, when it's due to be exchanged for a new one. All of that will be tokenized, and with the contracts and the documentation behind it, as well as the people that live there, criminal background checks, insurance, medical, that will be permission-based access. And I will, as an owner of my data, I'll be able to sell that data and earn money or tokens, or I can play a video game, and this is already happening now, Indonesia and Philippines. There's games that you can earn $1.50 an hour for playing, which is more than the average wage. So for playing these video games, and they're in NFT form, non-fungible token form. So that to me is going to, as it rolls out over the next 5, 10, 20 years, I think that's going to really be the exception. That's going to be that's going to change the face of how we interact with technology. Not to mention the
Yeah,
financial world is going to change.
tremendously. No, yeah, there's a lot of interesting things you said there. And, I couldn't help but listen and hear why. And I always try to put myself in, the perspective of somebody who's new, who doesn't understand the technology. And as you can tell, and you made this comment earlier about people's vernacular needs to be corrected, or not necessarily corrected, but it's just about education, and people need to understand that the differences between a blockchain and a crypto and an NFT, which it's not easy necessarily, especially for somebody who's not a technology person. So, it ends up in these conversations that we're talking about it like it's almost one and the same. We're talking about tokens, we're talking about blockchain. So here's my assessment, and I want to get your thoughts and agreement or disagreement on this, which is through some of the things that you've said and some of the other guests that have brought to the table on this podcast specifically about what blockchain really has the opportunity to do and disrupt, is it seems like that this is a protocol and technology that really has the ability to move us forward as a species, right? It has the ability to make massive impacts in industries where it can help the world in a very positive way. Of course, everything can be used for positive or negative, right, depending on the person. But at the end of the day, it seems like there's so many people that are trying to solve problems that have just been lingering for years and years, and there's finally a solution that can truly solve it. And I just don't think people can wrap their heads around how it really works to understand the true implications of the technology. So it's really exciting to see that. And then you see cryptocurrency and tokenization of things, which is the layer on top of it, right? It's the way that we transact and transfer value across that blockchain, right? So what, in your opinion, and I know they kind of are one and the same, but they're not, because one's transferring value and one's an underlying protocol, right? It's kind of like the internet's an underlying protocol, and you're transferring the information from person to person in real time, right? So what to you is the real killer application? Is it blockchain? Is it crypto? Is it the combination that Satoshi Nakamoto had described in his white paper for using both as a peer-to-peer payment system? Because I really foresee this as blockchain is the technology and the killer app for moving the global infrastructure forward and solving a lot of problems that have been around. And cryptocurrency is a way, if done right, that can potentially, for the first time ever, level the playing field to bank the unbanked and be able to allow people that never got access to financial services and or freedom to be able to now compete at the global level and leverage some of the incredible things that blockchain technology is about to, provide for the world. What are your thoughts on that?
Yeah, I think I try to compare, like my dad always tells me, keep it simple, Kelly, otherwise people aren't going to understand you. And, there's no point in talking about things when people don't understand you. So I like to keep it simple.
True.
So I think that blockchain is the path. Let's just look at the 49ers digging for gold. So let's look at New York City all the way to San Francisco. There was a path, but it wasn't a highway. I think blockchain is the path. And I think that the different protocols is the actual concrete on the highway. You choose your types of asphalt and you go forward. I think cryptocurrencies are the little exits with the nice little cafes. That's going to keep you fed and happy to keep going. It's going to give you that energy boost to continue along that highway. And I think that if you take that into consideration, and then you have the actual things that are moving you forward, like utility tokens or security tokens, maybe security tokens are the tollways along the way. But then you have natural asset tokens, you have crypto collectibles that you pull over on the side of the road near a national park and you buy one of those little bear things that is a collectible and crypto collectibles. And then you have crypto to fiat currencies or stable coins that, really are, what is going to stabilize everything. They're kind of like the shock absorbers on your car. They're like, I call the stable coins like the Federal Reserve of cryptocurrencies to, and not that I'm a supporter of the Federal Reserve, but it has, stabilized the way we transact here in the United States, looking at New Orleans as a port, a couple hundred years ago, when there was hemp and gold and cotton and leather and fur and silver and corn all being traded, and sugarcane being traded, and nobody really knew what the exchange rate is for all these things. So then they created what is the U.S. dollar. The first U.S. dollar had Louisiana Purchase across the top of it, or Louisiana on the top of it. And then the Federal Reserve stepped in the early 1900s and decided that nobody kind of knew what anything was worth. So they created this ability to make a stable currency. And I think that's our stable coin now, or our crypto to fiat currencies. We aren't going to be always crypto. We're not moving to a world where it's only going to be digital currency and cryptocurrency. I know that's, back in the early 2000s, we thought, or the mid 2000s, 2010, 2005, we thought that data centers were going away, or even shopping malls, because we had websites and we could purchase things. We thought shopping malls were just going to disappear. And that didn't happen. Or data centers are going to disappear because now we have cloud or virtual servers. And that didn't happen because we increased the data. So we just think now that fiat currency is going to disappear. Well, that's probably not going to happen either. We'll have a crypto and fiat exchange rate. We'll have places where we can use fiat and places where we can use cryptocurrency. And I think but I think the value of fiat currencies is going to change, and how people look at fiat currencies. I think our denomination, our use of fiat currency is going to become less and less. And I think that we'll probably use more $1, 25 cents, $10, $20, but not, we won't transact anymore in buying houses or big boats or large pieces of land. I don't think that we'll do that in fiat anymore. I think we'll do that more in a cryptocurrency. So the cryptocurrency to me is going to be higher valued purchases. And so, getting the terminology right, you're absolutely right. It's a lot of information and understanding how those apply to you. And I think that will happen over time, and little by little, that vocabulary will filter into, and with the media and with IBM's marketing budget, I think it'll very easily filter into our, the masses, our everyday talk, and our vocabulary. So I think that you're absolutely right. The terminology has to evolve, and that takes time. But I think that, if I compared how blockchain is going to work to normal everyday usage, and I try to make it simple, and I try to create a visual where people can actually apply the different assets, so they can actually learn the terminology and apply it to their daily use. That was a very long-winded answer. However, I hope I answered your question.
Yep, very well. Thank you.
Yeah, I love it. Actually, Kelly, if you don't mind, I'd like to continue the visual of the highway. I find that it really helps folks to be able to wrap their heads around, a visual as well. But you and I share a passion for sustainable technologies, green technologies, and really trying to tackle some of the global challenges that we have. Not every highway is going to lead towards that, but can you talk a little bit about what we might see along that highway and how the world's going to change over the next 10 years?
Yeah, the other day I was at a talk, and somebody mentioned that proof of stake versus proof of work. And if we choose proof of work, then it's going to really help with climate change, which is, I just had a really hard time with back in the 80s, you remember when McDonald's bags changed from white to brown and they were being recycled? That's when we had, we recognized that we had a climate problem. And that, if that wasn't the first time, but that was in my lifetime, that was the first time where I actually started to realize that, we need to really pay attention to our climate. So as far as blockchain goes, I don't think that mining proof of stake or proof of work is going to have any effect on our environment, our climate. I think it wouldn't matter because we just started mining in the past 10 years. I don't think that that's really going to have an effect on our climate. However, the data center industry is going to, if we can adopt to blockchain technology, I think it will really help our climate change. And Facebook built a data center in Luleå, Sweden, a few years ago. And in Sweden, in the northern part of Sweden, it's very cold. Direct cooling is great for that data center. But something that massive, 150 megawatt, I think it is, or maybe it's 100 megawatt, that massive running warm is going to have an effect on the surrounding area. And if you multiply that 100 megawatt data center by 30 or 40, that's how many hyperscale data centers there are in the world. And so, and most of the time they're in environments where it's significantly cooler, so they don't have to spend a lot of money on keeping that data center at the right temperature. Direct cooling is a lot more efficient financially. So I think that's going to have a huge effect if we can eliminate the number of data centers that we have for backup and disaster recovery and mirror images of data centers, especially with the financial industry. I think that's going to have a huge effect. Now, if you're talking about people and sustainability, if you talk about the environment, there's an organization out of Ireland that are putting carbon credits on the blockchain, so people can exchange. If they use a recycled cup, or if a cup that is it's a multi-use cup, coffee cup, then they get credits and they can trade those carbon credits with blockchain technology. And also you can, as an organization, you can buy carbon credits. Now, right now, carbon credits industry is a little bit vague. It's not very clear of who actually, what their carbon footprint is actually right now. I mean, it's, I wouldn't say it's a lie, but a lot of organizations don't really know what their carbon footprint is, and they really don't know what they're doing to improve their carbon footprint. I try to look for opportunities to reduce and save as much as possible. But organizations typically, they're trying to spend, they're actually spending a lot of money. The Fortune 500 organizations right now in the United States are spending a lot of money on sustainability, and they're looking into ways they can really work with their communities. And they're, BP, Shell, they've been doing this for years, especially in countries where they had to go back and apologize for what's happened in the past. They've spent a lot of money on planting plants and trees and trying to build up villages and communities, like in Nigeria, for example, because of what they have annihilated a lot of those villages, and they've gone back and tried to improve. They've recognized it and gone back and apologized and really tried to put money back into those environments. Now, as far as blockchain technology goes, in the future, they will go in and negotiate.
It's 15 hours.
Sorry, that's my clock on my computer. They'll negotiate for offering the community carbon credits, or they can use those carbon credits for books to trade for reading materials, et cetera, or school fees. I think that's going to be tokenized, and I think that's really going to help create a more sustainable environment for lower income groups and communities. So I think there's so many opportunities for us to spread good knowledge, education, and opportunity to improve communities. And from the corporate perspective, there's a lot of opportunity there. And they're really, I believe, and I've seen a huge shift in the past couple of years to recognizing that there is an obvious opportunity for sustainability, but there's obviously an opportunity to make our climate better, and to work with communities to support them, and like collecting plastics, for example. You know, I think that if you've ever been to Nigeria, I lived and worked in Nigeria, the beaches are full of plastic. I mean, and I'm talking like 10 feet deep, you know, into the sea. You can't go out on a motorboat without having plastic wrapped up in your motors, for example. It's really a very sad thing to see. When you see the amount of plastic in our oceans and in our water supply. And I think that when we actually start to recognize that and do something about it and hold these organizations accountable, then we'll see real climate change. Then we'll see sustainability actually taking place. There's opportunity for blockchain to track, you know, the biggest challenge I see right now in the United States is that everybody's buying electric cars. And with electric cars comes batteries. And the batteries are made of lithium ion or nickel metal hydride. But how many battery recycling plants do we have? Now we have some. In the UK, there is none. They've earmarked $150 million or pounds, I believe, to build a recycling plant for batteries. Because right now, what they do is they ship them offshore. They ship them to Germany for recycling, for example, in the UK. So here in the United States, there aren't very many recycling plants for batteries. It's a big challenge. And I think that with electric cars, we're going to see even more. But with blockchain technology, who owns that battery in the car, it will be understood. And who is responsible for recycling it will be understood as well. And will it be the auto manufacturer, or will it be the dealership, or will it be the individual purchaser of the car? I think that will be understood in a smart contract or an NFT, and the responsibility will be divided, fractional payments, and I think that will be divided with blockchain technology. So there's many different ways that we can address climate change and work with organizations for sustainability. Those are just a few.
I love it. I love it. I also agree that you talked about the battery recycling. I'm hoping that with blockchain and data transparency and quantification of all things, that it becomes more cost effective for the manufacturers to actually go out and reclaim the old ones, to reuse that, and that becomes part of their supply chain. That I would love to see some level of revolution there. Well, excellent. Kelly, thank you so much for being here with us. We are running out of time, but if you have any last thoughts before we wrap up, it has just been an absolute pleasure to hear your thoughts on the industry and all of the things that you just have exposure to, especially the data center conversations. Those were great for me. So thank you so much for being here.
Thank you for having me, and I've enjoyed answering the questions. It's nice to have the ability just to talk about a number of things instead of having a specific topic to discuss. So thank you very much for having me.
Well, thank you so much for letting us get to know you, and we're really looking forward to having you back when in a few months when we have our video cast ready, and then hopefully we can share with the world all of the amazing things that you're doing between now and then.
Excellent. Thank you, guys.
Thank you so much, Kelly. Great having you.
Thank you. Take care.